Hello, everyone. Did you think I was done with this book? Yeah, I didn't think I was either. I'm starting with 628 prompts left to go. The other prompts are in the earlier videos of mine that I'll link down below, so let's see how many I can accomplish today. Probably not 628, but we'll see. The way I do this is by closing my eyes. Not that you can see me closing my eyes, but I promise I'm closing my eyes. And then I flip through the pages randomly until I feel like picking one, and I do the same thing with waggling my finger around. Eventually, I land on one, and what prompt do we have? Olive pits. Okay. The only time I've really seen olive pits have been when I was angrily trying to separate them from the olives so that I could continue prepping dinner, and failing because I'm not a cook. So, needless to say, I had to look up what these things actually looked like. And they pretty much look like what I thought they would look like. Very tiny, very textured. Perfect. It kind of looks like how most seeds look. Like, think of a seed, any seed, and you've probably got the right idea. Unless you're thinking of something weird like, I don't know, cashews? Cashews themselves are seeds, right? Are nuts and seeds the same thing? Point is, they're not the seeds I'm talking about. I'm talking about the oblong shape with weird little points on either end and multiple ridges running along the length of the seed, which I think I was able to draw pretty well. But it just sort of looked like any kind of seed, so to remedy that, I drew an actual olive behind it to, make the connection more obvious, and to work on my skills with drawing and shading round objects, like olives. I think the key thing to remember when drawing something that's round or circular or spherical, that if it's a natural object that you're drawing, you should never have a perfect shape. Let there be weird imperfections in that oval or circle. Not like giant squiggles, don't mess it up significantly, but don't try to be perfect with your lines either. It makes the object appear more natural. Allow yourself to be imperfect because imperfection is natural. And that's basically my only tip for the day because it's going to pop up a lot, so get used to it now. And I'll say this now, for these prompts, I don't try to go super hard on shading. I'm working more right now on hatching and cross-hatching because it's the type of shading I don't actually use that much. So I'm using these prompts to practice that, so that when I use this technique more seriously on more difficult or more intricate pieces, I'll have already had some experience with it and know how to use it better. Or at least that's the hope. Either way, it's kind of hard to use cross-hatching on round objects, because you want to shade at a curve, I think, to show that it's a 3D object, despite the drawing being 2D. And my brain isn't good at that sometimes, but it is a thing you can train yourself out of. I don't know if what I'm doing is the correct way to do that, but I tend to brute force my way through things anyway, and it's worked so far. But I digress. This is the finished sketch. The little marks on the seeds are my weak attempts at additional texture, but I think it distinguishes the seed from the olive behind it, so I'm okay with it. It's just a sketch anyway. So let's move on to the next one. And I'm going to be honest, once my fingers stopped moving, I had the instant gut feeling that I was going to absolutely hate the prompt. And my gut wasn't wrong. A first lost tooth. Oh boy. I hate teeth. Specifically, I hate my teeth. But that's honestly a whole other conversation that I'm not ready to have with random people on the internet yet. So, let's draw some teeth. Since this prompt specifies a first lost tooth, and not just any lost tooth, like an adult tooth with the root shape that everyone associates with teeth, I had to look up reference pictures, which was terrifying. The worst. I hated it so much. But I found some pictures and looked at them for 3 seconds and decided that was good enough and just gave it a shot, just wung it. Well, the first shot didn't look much like a tooth, so I gave it a second shot. Then a third, going with a different tooth that could be lost first. Then I decided to do one more just to fill up the space. And they all look scary. I hate loose teeth. It's one of the worst nightmares I can have on any given night. The one where, all your teeth fall out. Just no. No thank you. Nuh-uh. Okay, that's enough teeth. On to the next prompt. Please, let's go. And the one I picked happened to take up the entire page. Which, in a book full of tiny prompts, usually smaller than a page, actually having a full page for a sketch feels like a luxury, and gave me a little bit of anxiety, not gonna lie. I was getting used to working small with these prompts, and then here they are, tossing me space for something bigger than my palm. I mean, I don't show it directly during the video, but you can tell that my hand is barely bigger than this book, right? And considering I have teeny tiny baby hands that can and do fit into mittens made for children, think about what that means for this book. It's small. Not the smallest art book, probably, but it's close. Maybe there's an art book out there that's smaller, but that will have to be for another time. Another video. For now, let's draw a ring box. I didn't try to do any odd shapes because with lines like these that are almost straight, but also exist on a 3D plane, they can get pretty complicated. Drawing the 3D shapes wasn't particularly hard. My issue was mainly with making the angle of each line in relation to each other actually work. I just have a hard time judging distance, especially on flat paper for some reason, but the rest of the shapes came together pretty easily. Like I said earlier, I wasn't worrying about being perfect with the shape because ring boxes aren't like flat cardboard. They probably are underneath, but like, besides the point. They have cloth coverings and creases and curves that aren't flat, and so your drawing doesn't have to be a pin-straight recreation that someone would need a ruler to make. And I think that's what helped this out in the long run. That and darkening the lines after shading in what I wanted shaded. Because the thing about working completely with pencil is that your actual line work can get muddied by all the shading that you do on top of it. So what I do to combat that is basically what you might do with a fine liner. Pick your best lines and draw only those. It helps give the sketch a more structured finish, and it can help you see where you have to deepen or lighten some of your earlier shadings. I wasn't going to keep going back and forth with that technique though, so I kept it to sketch, shade, and line. And a little bit of after shading. Only because I can't help myself. But that's how it turned out. The cross-hatching could have been done better, but that's just something to note as I continue to work on the technique. For now, let's move on to the next prompt. And just when I thought my fears were far behind me, lo and behold, my finger points to another symbol of my anxiety. A dentist's hand mirror. You know, the little tiny metal circles that they use to push down your tongue or ram against the inside of your cheek or stab into your gums. Can you tell I'm not a fan of the dentist yet? You can? Good. Hopefully I'll never have to talk about it again. Though after the lost teeth sketch, and then this hand mirror, and I've already had several dental procedures recently, I don't think I'm gonna have a very hard time with that. The bright side to this prompt is that it was really simple to draw. Some straight lines and a bit of curves and a circle, then connect them all together and bam! Dentist hand mirror. That sounds like some really awful art tutorial, doesn't it? Like the draw 2 circles, then draw the rest of the fucking owl. You know that one, right? I don't sound crazy? Actually, if you want to watch me follow a kinda similar art book tutorial, I'll have that video linked down below. It's nowhere near as bad as some tutorials can be, but it also wasn't super specific or helpful anyway. At least not to me. But this one came out pretty well. I had to spend a bit of time on the shading because it is a cylindrical object and the shading can't be straight if the object isn't flat, so that took a good minute or two. But I've sped up the video so it's even faster for all of you watching this. You're welcome. Alright, time for the next one. Technically there was one I did just before this one, but I didn't do a very good job on it. In fact, a very terrible job, to the point that I didn't want to share it, so I've cut it out entirely. But it's fine. I've got like 3 more prompts that I did today because I was just on a roll apparently, so it's no real loss. So the one I did after that was for the prompt Music Box Ballerina. And when I tell you I was excited, I mean it. I was really excited. A lot of the prompts in this book are not human. They're mostly objects or ideas, tiny objects really, which makes sense considering the literal title of the book. But I've been wanting to try to draw characters smaller and smaller, especially after seeing some of that floating around in the art YouTube sphere a while back. Like, keep drawing things smaller and smaller until it's like imperceptibly tiny. Though I'm probably too late for that train, so at least I get to attempt it here. Because I've been working on really honing my anatomy skills as of late, I was ready to see if I could reproduce something approaching accurate anatomy on a smaller scale like this. Working this small, it allows me to focus on the shapes of the parts of the body and not get too bogged down in the details like the face or the fingers or feet, which is almost every artist's nightmare. Working small just allows you to skip them all together. The perfect shortcut, really. Unless you actually want to get better at drawing those things, in which case drawing this small isn't doing you any favors. But for overall anatomy and shape and balance and posing, it's fantastic. My personal rule of thumb is this: to learn big things, draw them teeny tiny. To learn teeny tiny things, draw them big. I don't know why, but it works. At least for me. Maybe for you too? Try it out and let me know, I guess. You can tell I had a lot more fun with this one too, because I spent a lot of time refining the lines and shading between all the tiny curves and details. Definitely more work than I needed to do, but it was a lot of fun and I think it came out really well. Even though the face is very much just a series of dashes. Still a really cute prompt and probably my favorite. I mean, I know it's my favorite because I'm doing this voiceover after having completed the filming for the video, but on to the next one. Yeah, on to the next one, now. So, for this next one, I have a confession to make. I almost scrapped this one and did a different one instead because I had no idea what this was. The prompt was Sand Dollar, and honestly, hadn't heard of them before. I thought it was just like a dollar stuck in sand. Like, I didn't grow up near the ocean, I didn't go on vacations or anything, didn't visit the ocean until I was older, and even then I didn't know that these things had a name, especially the name like Sand Dollar. Like, it makes sense to me to call it that because it kind of looks like some form of currency. So I went ahead and did the prompt. It ended up being pretty simple, more so than I think any of the other prompts today. And this really was another example of why I say don't use perfect circles as your final lines. It would have made this puzzle look far less organic without the ridges and divots along the edges. That being said, I think I might have overdone it just a tiny bit. It was kind of hard to do any real shading because they're pretty flat and light, so I made up for that by exaggerating the lines. I don't mind how it turned out, so I considered it done and then moved on to the final sketch. Okay, so I was going to technically end the video after the last one, but I felt that maybe I could get one more in there to have something better to end on. And when my finger landed on the prompt for earbuds, I was fairly optimistic. I even had the perfect reference right on my desk. They're not mine, I borrowed them from my significant other, but they're wireless and smallish and they fit right into the prompt box. So why not give it a shot, right? I wasn't actually very optimistic at this point because it felt like the curves and details were going to be hard to make with the earbuds being so dark, but I tackled that by just not coloring them in dark. Instead, I relied pretty heavily on the shading and relining my lines a few more times, like I mentioned earlier in the video. You know, the thing I wasn't gonna do, but I did anyway, because I never listened to my own advice, ever. But in this case, it turned out really well, so don't listen to my... No, that's not... Anyway, the angle I'm drawing this at is a bit different than the other one you're seeing because I had to sort of look past my camera in order to see what I was drawing, so I saw the earbud at a different angle. Not the wrong angle, just a different one. And, you know, I think this one came out really well. I really enjoyed it. But the page felt kinda empty and off balance, so I took out the other one so I could draw it and have a complete set on the page, which I really didn't feel like doing, but I chugged along anyway. I chose a different angle from the first one, though, and this one, for whatever reason, was just more difficult for my eyes to make sense of the shape on a 2D plane. I tried my best, and I think I got it to look relatively equal to the first one. Looking at it now, I think the ear gummy thing might be a little too small, like a little too square, but regardless, I really like how these came out, and I think they're a really good stopping point. So that's all the sketches for today's video. 7, technically 8, but we're not going to talk about that one. And I'd say they all came out pretty well. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, you can like the video and leave a comment down below telling me which one was your favorite. I upload every Tuesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can be notified as soon as my videos come out. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!